Marcus looked out from the cockpit of his small scout ship as the glowing planet came into view. He had been in space for months, traveling to places no human had ever seen. The coordinates had brought him here, to a world that was still mostly unexplored. He had heard rumors about this place, strange reports of alien life forms and bioluminescent forests. It all sounded like something out of a story, but here he was, alone in the vast unknown. The planet was beautiful, its surface covered with thick, glowing forests. From orbit, it looked like a living world, full of mystery and wonder. Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. He had landed on many planets before, but this one felt different. Something about it made his heart race. It was a feeling he couldn't explain, but he knew it meant something. He was about to make history, even if he didn't know what he would find. Marcus stepped out of his ship and onto the surface of the planet. The ground beneath his boots was soft, and as he walked, the plants around him seemed to respond to his presence, glowing brighter with each step. It was as though the world itself was alive, aware of him. The air smelled sweet, like a blend of flowers and fresh rain, and the sky above was a deep violet color, filled with distant stars. He moved cautiously, knowing that despite the planet's beauty, it could hold dangers he hadn't yet discovered. His mission was simple: explore, catalog, and report back. But as he ventured deeper into the glowing woods, he began to feel a presence, something, or someone, watching him. The forest was quiet, save for the faint hum of bioluminescent insects flying through the air. Marcus scanned the area with his eyes, trying to make sense of what he was feeling. Then, through the trees ahead, he saw something. A figure standing still, almost hidden in the shadows of the plants. His heart skipped a beat. It was an alien, no doubt about it. Marcus had seen pictures of alien life forms, but nothing prepared him for this. The alien woman was tall, with skin that shimmered softly, like it was made of light itself. Her hair was long and silver, flowing down her back in waves, but it was her eyes that caught his attention most. They were bright, glowing like two stars in the dark, and they locked onto him the moment she noticed him. Marcus stood frozen for a moment, staring back at her. She didn't move, but her gaze was intense, almost as if she were studying him. He opened his mouth to say something, but no words came out at first. He had no idea what kind of greeting was appropriate. He wasn't sure what to expect, but he felt an overwhelming urge to break the silence. "Your eyes, they're beautiful," he said, his voice a little shaky but sincere. He had meant it. But her eyes were unlike anything he had ever seen, and he could barely look away. There was something mesmerizing about them, something otherworldly. For a moment, the alien woman didn't respond. She tilted her head slightly, as though considering his words. Then, a small smile appeared on her face, though it was more of a smirk than anything else. She took a slow step forward, her movements graceful and confident. "I have something prettier," she said softly, her voice a strange mix of melodic and smooth, yet with a hint of playfulness. "Want to see?" Marcus blinked, taken aback by her words. Something about the way she spoke made his heart race. Was she joking? He wasn't sure. He had no frame of reference for this kind of encounter. But there was no mistaking the challenge in her voice. Sure," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. He wasn't sure what she meant, but he didn't want to seem rude or uninterested. The curiosity inside him was growing stronger, and he felt himself taking a step forward without thinking. The alien woman gestured for him to follow, and without a second thought, Marcus did just that. He felt like he was in a dream, walking deeper into the glowing woods with an alien woman leading him. Every step seemed to take him further into the unknown, yet there was a strange sense of calm, too. The bioluminescent plants around him seemed to respond to her presence, lighting up as if welcoming her. They walked in silence for a few minutes, the quiet hum of the forest filling the space between them. Marcus couldn't help but glance at her every now and then. Her skin was translucent in places, almost like a fine mist or the surface of water, and her eyes, they never left him. She moved with an otherworldly elegance, as if she were part of the forest itself. After a short while, they reached a clearing. In the center was a large stone structure, covered in glowing vines and strange markings. It looked ancient, yet there was an air of power about it, as if it had stood for centuries, untouched by time. The air here was thick with energy, and Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "This is my sanctuary," the woman said, her voice soft but clear. "You wanted to see something prettier?" "This is just the beginning." Marcus was speechless, his eyes scanning the scene before him. The stone structure was like nothing he had ever seen. It was alive, as if it were pulsing with energy. The air around them hummed with an unseen force, and he could feel the hairs on his neck stand up. The woman turned toward him, her eyes glowing even brighter. "Come," she said, her voice now commanding. "I'll show you." She stepped into the center of the stone structure, and Marcus hesitated for a moment. The energy in the air seemed to intensify, and he felt a strange pull toward her. Without thinking, he followed her, stepping into the clearing. Suddenly, the space around them seemed to shift. The air was charged, and Marcus felt his skin tingle with electricity. Then, before his eyes, the woman's form began to change. Her body flickered, her edges blurring like the light from a fire, and then, like a flame, she began to shimmer, turning into something more. Her skin became a glowing mass of light, shifting and pulsating as if it were alive. She was no longer just a person, but something else entirely, a being of pure energy. Marcus stood frozen, his mouth dry. The sight before him was indescribable. It was as if the very stars had come to life, weaving themselves into her form. The alien woman had become something beyond physical beauty, something that made his heart race with awe and wonder. She turned to face him, and her eyes, still glowing, locked onto his. "This is what I am," she said, her voice now echoing in his mind as much as in his ears. "This is the beauty I was talking about." He had seen the stars from space, and he had explored alien planets, but nothing had ever prepared him for this. The woman, no, the being, before him was beyond anything he had ever imagined. She was not just beautiful in the way he understood beauty, but in a way that transcended his entire understanding of the universe. He stood there, speechless, mesmerized by the sight of her, and for the first time since his journey began, Marcus knew that nothing would ever be the same again. His adventure was just beginning, and he had no idea where it would lead. But he knew one thing for sure. He was no longer just a human explorer. He was part of something far bigger than he had ever imagined. Marcus stood there, utterly stunned, his mind racing to understand what he was seeing. The being before him, Lyra, as she had called herself, was no longer just a woman. She had become something far beyond anything he had ever encountered. Her form, once solid and human-like, was now a mass of radiant energy, glowing with a brilliance that was almost blinding. The air around her seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy, as if the very fabric of reality was bending to her will. For a moment, Marcus couldn't speak. His heart was pounding in his chest, and his thoughts were a tangled mess of awe and confusion. He had come here seeking knowledge, adventure, and perhaps a glimpse of the unknown. But this was more than he had bargained for. This was beyond his wildest dreams and his deepest fears. Lyra's form flickered, her light shifting like the surface of a flame. As she spoke, her voice seemed to echo in his mind, not just in his ears. "I am of the Synthar, a race of beings who exist not just in the physical realm, but in the energy of the universe itself," she said, her voice both soft and powerful, like the wind rustling through leaves. "We are not bound by the same laws of nature as your people. We are part of everything around us. Marcus blinked, trying to wrap his mind around her words. The idea that a being could exist in a form beyond the physical, that was beyond anything he had learned in all his years of training. It was beyond science, beyond logic. But here she was, standing in front of him, her glowing light shimmering with power. It wasn't just a form. It was a living force. How is this possible? Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. I've never seen anything like this before. Lyra smiled, the light around her flickering like a fire that danced in the dark. I'm not surprised. Few have. My people have kept our true nature hidden for eons, guarding the knowledge of the universe from those who are not ready to understand it. Your people, they are not ready yet. The words hit Marcus like a cold wave. Not ready, he repeated. What do you mean? I'm a scientist. I've studied the stars, the galaxies. I've seen things no human has ever seen. Lyra tilted her head, her glowing eyes fixed on him. Your understanding is limited. You see the stars as distant points of light, but you do not see the energy that binds them together. You think of life as a series of physical processes, but it is so much more than that. We, the Synthar, are connected to the very energy of the universe. We are living light, and we shape the world around us with our minds. We influence reality itself. Marcus felt a strange sensation in the pit of his stomach, like a mix of wonder and fear. His training had never prepared him for anything like this. He had learned about physics, biology, and astronomy, but none of that seemed relevant now. Lyra and everything she represented was something entirely different. She was a force of nature, something beyond his comprehension. Why are you showing me this? Marcus asked, his voice a little shaky. Why are you telling me all this? Lyra's light shifted again, growing brighter for a moment before fading slightly. She stepped closer to him, and he instinctively took a small step back, though he couldn't tear his eyes away from her. Because you are the first, she said simply, the first human to see us, to understand us. But you are also the first to ask the right questions. There are others, humans who come to explore, to conquer, to take. But you, Marcus, you are different. You are not here to conquer. You are here to learn. Marcus felt a pang of pride at her words, but it was quickly replaced by confusion. I don't understand, he said. Why me? Why am I the first? There must be others like me, others who want to know. Lyra's light flickered, and she looked away for a moment, as if deep in thought. When she spoke again, her voice was tinged with sadness. Not everyone is capable of understanding, she said. Many of your kind are driven by greed, by the desire to take what they can from the universe. They seek knowledge, but they do not seek to understand it. They do not have the capacity for true wisdom. And so, we have kept ourselves hidden. We have watched your species, hoping one day someone would come who could see beyond the surface. Marcus felt a knot tighten in his chest. So, what does that mean for me? What am I supposed to do with this knowledge? I'm just one man. I can't. Lyra raised a hand and the energy around her shimmered, creating a soft pulse of light that washed over him. It was warm and comforting, and for a moment he felt at peace. You are not alone, she said softly. We are not asking you to carry this burden by yourself. The universe is vast, and there is much you do not yet know. But now you have seen us, and you will remember. You will carry this knowledge with you, and when the time comes, you will be ready to share it. Marcus nodded slowly, though he still wasn't sure he fully understood. The enormity of what she was saying felt like too much to process. But as he stood there looking at Lyra's glowing form, he realized that he couldn't walk away from this. He couldn't just return to Earth and pretend this had never happened. He had been given something extraordinary, something that would change the course of his life forever. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. Lyra's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, the light around her dimmed. "Nothing, Marcus. Not yet. But there will come a time when you must choose, when your people are ready, or when they are not. And when that time comes, you will have to decide what kind of future you want to help create." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. He had never expected his mission to take this turn, never imagined he would be standing here, facing an alien race with the power to shape the universe. But there was no turning back now. The journey he had started was no longer just about exploration. It was about something much bigger, something that would affect not just him, but humanity as a whole. "I'll be ready," he said, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. He wasn't even sure what Reddi meant in this context. But one thing was certain, his life would never be the same again. Lyra smiled, the light around her brightening once more. "I believe you will be, but you must be patient. The universe unfolds in its own time. And sometimes, even the brightest stars must wait for their moment." As she spoke, the forest around them seemed to come alive, the plants glowing brighter, responding to the energy that surrounded them. Marcus felt a sense of calm wash over him, as if the very world itself was reassuring him. Whatever came next, he would face it. He had no choice. The universe had just opened up to him in a way he could never have imagined. Lyra extended a hand, and Marcus hesitated for only a moment before he took it. The warmth of her energy seeped into him, and he felt the connection, not just to her, but to something far greater. The journey was just beginning. The days that followed were a blur for Marcus. He had never imagined his life would take such an extraordinary turn. Since that day in the glowing forest, when he first met Lyra and saw the incredible power of the Synthar, everything seemed different. The weight of what she had shared with him lingered in his mind, like a shadow that stretched far beyond his understanding. Marcus spent his days in the forest, learning more about the Synthar and their abilities. Lyra had become his guide, teaching him about the energy that flowed through their world, explaining how her people could manipulate light and matter to influence reality itself. It was fascinating, and Marcus found himself in awe of what the Synthar had achieved. Yet, as he learned more, a nagging feeling grew inside him, one that he couldn't shake. The deeper he delved into their ways, the more he began to sense a growing tension in the air. The Synthar, it seemed, were divided. Not everyone was as welcoming of him as Lyra had been. One evening, as Marcus sat by the stone structure where he had first met Lyra, deep in thought, he heard voices approaching. The forest was quiet, but there was something about the sound of footsteps that didn't feel right. It wasn't the soft hum of the bioluminescent insects or the usual rustle of the trees. This was different. Heavier. Marcus stood up slowly, his instincts kicking in. A group of Synthar warriors emerged from the shadows, their glowing eyes fixed on him. They were taller than Lyra, their bodies covered in shimmering armor that flickered like liquid light. They looked imposing, and for the first time since he arrived on the planet, Marcus felt a real sense of danger. "Marcus!" One of the warriors spoke, his voice low and steady. "You do not belong here." The words were clear, yet there was no immediate hostility in his tone. Still, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. These weren't the peaceful Synthar who had shown him their world. These were warriors, and they didn't seem to trust him. "I'm not here to harm anyone," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice calm. "I'm here to learn, to understand." The warrior's eyes narrowed. "Your people are not ready for what we can teach. You seek knowledge, but you do not yet have the wisdom to wield it." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Ooh." He had heard similar words from Lyra, but they had come with a sense of hope, of possibility. These warriors, however, seemed to believe that his presence was a mistake. I'm trying to understand, Marcus said again, his voice rising slightly. I've seen things, learned things that no human has ever seen. I don't want to take anything from you. I just want to know. The tension in the air thickened. The warriors stepped closer, their glowing forms casting long shadows across the clearing. One of them, a woman with striking silver eyes, spoke in a voice that carried authority. Your kind has a history of destruction. You come to explore, to take, to conquer. We cannot allow you to do that here. Marcus's mind raced. He hadn't come to conquer anything. He had come to learn, to find answers. And yet, here he was, being accused of things he had never even considered. The Synthar weren't wrong. Humanity had a history of greed and destruction, but he wasn't like that. He wasn't here to exploit them. I don't want to cause harm, Marcus said, his voice quieter now but firm. I want to help. I want to show my people that there is more to the universe than just what we know. The silver-eyed warrior didn't seem convinced. She looked at the others, her gaze heavy with distrust. Words are meaningless. Your kind has shown time and time again that they cannot be trusted. You have no place here. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest. He couldn't let this happen. He couldn't leave without understanding more, without truly learning what the Synthar were capable of. He needed to prove himself, not just to them, but to himself. I don't expect you to trust me, Marcus said, but I want to earn it. I can help you. I know I can. Just give me a chance. For a moment, the warriors said nothing. The air hung heavy between them, the silence thick with unspoken words. Then, Lyra's voice cut through the tension. Stop, she commanded, stepping out from the shadows. Her light flickered and dimmed as she approached the group, her eyes glowing with a quiet power. I will speak to him. The warriors stepped back, their posture changing as Lyra approached. The silver-eyed warrior, who had spoken before, hesitated, but ultimately gave a slight nod. You are the one who brought him here, she said, her tone now more subdued. But we do not trust him. We cannot allow him to stay if he is a threat.
Lyra looked at Marcus, her eyes soft but filled with resolve.
You do not understand what you are asking. The Synthar are not like your people. We do not take lightly to outsiders, especially ones who are still tied to the destructive ways of their world. But I believe in you. I believe you can learn. I will give you that chance. Marcus exhaled, relief washing over him. But it wasn't over yet. There was still much to prove. He couldn't afford to fail. The warriors exchanged wary glances, but after a long pause, they reluctantly agreed. The silver-eyed warrior spoke again, this time with a slight edge in her voice. This is your last chance, human. If you fail us, there will be consequences. Marcus nodded, his heart still racing. He knew the stakes were high. This wasn't just about exploration anymore. It was about trust, survival, and proving that he and humanity could be more than the destructive force the Synthar feared. Lyra turned to Marcus, her glowing form flickering slightly as she spoke. I will take you to the Temple of Light. There, you will face the trial of harmony. If you can pass it, you will earn the right to stay and learn with us. But be warned, the trial is not easy. Many who have attempted it before have failed. Marcus swallowed hard, his nerves returning. I'm ready, he said, though he wasn't sure if he was. But he knew he couldn't back down now, not after everything he had learned, and not after everything Lyra had shown him. This was his chance to prove that he was different, that humanity could be more than just destructive forces in the universe. Lyra nodded, her light glowing brighter for a moment. Then come, the trial awaits. As they left the clearing, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had learned up until now had been leading to this moment. The trial of harmony would test everything he had come to understand about the Synthar, about energy, and about himself. But it was more than that. It was a test of humanity's future, of what they could become if they could learn from the past and evolve beyond it. The journey ahead would not be easy. But Marcus was determined to face whatever came next. For his people, for the Synthar, and for the future of the universe itself.